You know, every time you step into a clinic or a hospital, you're not just having a medical appointment. You're actually stepping into a story with a bunch of different characters, and each one has their own hopes, their own fears. Today, we're going to dig into why understanding all of those stories is probably the most important key to better healthcare for every single one of us. So, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the single most powerful tool in all of healthcare? I mean, is it a fancy MRI machine, a surgeon's scalpel, some breakthrough new drug? What if I told you it was something much more basic and a whole lot more human? That's right. It's a story. Think about it. The ability to understand, to share, and to really connect through stories, that's at the very heart of healing. Our source for this explainer, the Narrative Playbook, makes this incredible point that to truly fix healthcare, we first have to learn how to listen to the stories of everyone involved. And this whole idea is actually part of a field called narrative medicine. Basically, it's an approach that treats all those personal stories from patients, caregivers, and clinicians, not as just, background noise, but as essential data. It's crucial information for healing. It's all about seeing the actual person behind the patient chart. So to really get this, we're going to need to step into the shoes of the three main characters in pretty much every healthcare story. You've got the provider, the patient, and the caregiver. By looking at the world through each of their eyes, we can start to see where their stories line up and, maybe more importantly, where they clash. All right, first up, the provider. Let's take a look at the view from behind the stethoscope and try to understand the story that they're living out day in and day out. The Narrative Playbook suggests that providers should reflect on two really fundamental questions. First, why did you get into this line of work in the first place? And second, what's getting in the way of that original mission? In the answer to that first question, it's almost always some version of this right here. I want to help people. It's this incredibly powerful, pure motivation to heal, to make a real difference. I mean, this is the core of the provider's story. It's the reason they put themselves through years and years of grueling training. But then, this is where that noble mission just collides with reality. Providers are up against these immense system pressures. Not enough time, way too much paperwork. They carry a heavy emotional toll. And on top of all that, they live with a constant, deep-seated fear of making a mistake. All these stressors make it incredibly difficult to stay connected to that original mission to just help. Okay, now let's completely shift our focus to the person who is at the absolute center of this whole world, the patient. Their story isn't just a search for a cure, but for something just as vital. It's a search for understanding. Just think about your own experiences for a second. Have you ever been in a doctor's office and felt like you just weren't really being heard? Or felt that pit in your stomach, worrying about how in the world you're going to afford the treatment? These are the kinds of anxieties that really shape the patient's story. And, those feelings, they lead to these really common, really difficult experiences. Feeling misunderstood, that erodes trust. Experiencing discrimination, well, that can create lasting trauma. And that anxiety over cost, it can be just as crippling as the illness itself. This is the reality for millions of patients out there. And finally, let's turn to a role that is so often overlooked, but is absolutely critical, the caregiver. They're the advocate, they're the navigator, the emotional support system. Basically, they're trying to guide someone they love through this incredibly complicated maze. For anyone who's ever been a caregiver, this question, it just hits home, doesn't it? The role is defined by love, of course, but it's also filled with all these unique frustrations that come from fighting for someone else inside a system that often feels broken. And these are the big ones. These are the burdens in the caregiver's story. They get tangled up in miscommunications, they have to battle insurance companies, and they witness the absolute heartbreak of treatments that just don't work. It is a journey of immense emotional and logistical weight. So here we are. We've got these three totally distinct stories, three different perspectives. And the key to a better system, it's not about picking one story and saying it's the right one. No, it's about weaving them all together to write a totally new script for healthcare. And this slide, this just lays out the whole picture perfectly. The provider's goal is to heal. The patient's goal is to be healed. And the caregiver's goal is to make sure their loved one is healed. See? Their goals are all perfectly aligned. But, and this is the kicker, it's their frustrations, all rooted in a flawed system, that end up putting them in conflict. So here it is. Here's the most crucial takeaway. When a provider truly understands a patient's fear about POTS, or when a patient can see the insane pressure their doctor is under, and when the whole system finally acknowledges the caregiver's burden, everything can change. Empathy, born from just listening to these stories, becomes the most powerful tool in the room. It's what lets a doctor say, hey, I know this is expensive. Let's talk about our options. And that simple sentence can completely change a patient's entire path forward. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about, not just for healthcare, but for all of our interactions. In your own life, just take a moment and ask yourself this: whose story am I not hearing?